حالا ما قسمتی از صحبتی که خانم نازنین افشین جمع کرد و با همدیگه گوش میدیم.
We also saw the face of Amina Shahbazi, mother of 3, on her way to buy medicine, who bends down to tend to an injured protester and gets shot to her death. Who is answerable for these deaths and the hundreds of protesters killed in the last couple of weeks in Iran? Hundreds of video clips are emerging as concrete evidence of human rights abuses of innocent, unarmed protesters. A member of the security forces in the city of Gorgan smashed a protester's head with an axe before shooting him and killing him at close range. Can you imagine this happening in our country? Can you imagine a world where the state harms its citizens with impunity? Who will ensure justice is served? The fear now that we've mentioned, Kaveh mentioned at the beginning as well, is what lies ahead for over 8,000 still detained, forced confessions leading to executions in the coming days. We know the brutal nature of this regime and what it is capable of. A Quran expert was invited on Iranian national TV and professed that protesters should not be given mercy and must be tortured, have their fingers removed before being executed. Therefore, soft platitudes from governments like, we encourage the Iranian regime to refrain from excessive force, etc., are but hollow, empty words and will not suffice. Statements are nice, a nice first step, which our own Prime Minister has not even bothered to make, but we need concrete steps. We should stand behind the Canadian-conceived responsibility to protect doctrine adopted by the United Nations, which calls for member states to come to the aid of nations where crimes against humanity and genocide are being committed. Canadians that say this is not our problem should be reminded not just the moral obligation to protect those whose human rights have been abused, but for their own safety as well. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism and has not refrained from nuclear proliferation. It is in the self-interest of Canada and European nations to sever ties with regime officials and instead support Iranians on their quest for freedom and democracy. Because we must remember, these protests were not about the spark of fuel surges, but the grievances of the vast majority of Iranians over 40 years under a brutal tyranny. Trump's decision to break the Iran deal and impose sanctions was the right one and has severely crippled the coffers of the Islamic regime. One might argue that it has also hurt regular Iranians, sort of like radiation affecting both good cells and bad. The question now is, how do we treat this cancer? We need a targeted excision. We need to target regime officials and the IRGC where it hurts the most, their existence and their pockets. What can we do here in Canada? First of all, adopt the Magnitsky Act, which would imply sanctioning those who are committing human rights abuses and impose asset freezes on regime officials with finances in Canada, as well as travel bans. States and Europe and help provide secure internet proxy channels in the event that the regime once again does a complete internet blackout in Iran. We hear constantly from the regime that they enjoy the popular support of the people. We know this to be the biggest of many lies. If they are so confident in the support, I challenge them, as 14 top activists in Iran have already done, to hold an internationally monitored referendum. This would demonstrate once and for all to the people of the world that the United Nations that the regime does not represent them. If they refuse, as they have, consequences need to follow. We could encourage other nations, particularly in Europe, who have strong trade deals with Iran to leverage their economic power and draw red lines. For example, if Iran does not release the detained peaceful protesters, and if the regime imposes an internet blackout, trading nations should invoke further sanctions. Iranian diplomats should be offered asylum by a certain date, otherwise be treated as persona non grata and be sent back to Iran.
Thank you.
If the deaths and abuses over 40 years are not enough of an excuse for nation states worldwide to condemn this regime, what about the gender apartheid that exists in Iran? The world boycotted South Africa for its racial apartheid. Why has the world community not come together to condemn Iran for treating a woman as being worth half of a man under the law? This type of apartheid is equally pernicious and must be condemned in the strongest terms as it was in South Africa. Iranian opposition groups and Iranian opposition channels should unite and coordinate a date for a countrywide general strike and sit-in. Even regime forces would not be able to do anything if a fraction of its 80 million population were to come out and do a peaceful sit-in. Of course, this would be through the instigation of those from the inside and what their wants and beliefs were. Once again, let me say how heartened I am to see the strength and numbers of Iranian Canadians here today in support of our loved ones who live under those oppressive tyrants. I believe it is not a matter of if, but when. Hukumati ke mardom ra bi jahat mikashad liaqat hukumat ra nadarad. Jumhuri Islami bayad beravad.
بله، در این ویدیو من خیلی کوتاه عرض میکنم مطالب بسیار مهمی رو نازنین اشاره کردن و قدم هایی که باید برداشته بشه بر علیه جمهوری اسلامی به خوبی مطرح کردن. و بعد یه چیزی که من فقط خواستم اشاره بکنم که ما منتظر خواهیم بود، ما اعترافات قلابی کسانی که دستگیر شدن یا اینکه افراد خودشون هست که به زودی میارن در تلویزیون ها نشون میدن که بگن که اینا میخواستن کارهای خیلی عجیب غریبی بکنن، انفجارها رو بکنن یا کسایی رو بکشن. میخواستم بگم که شما بیننده عزیز حتما میدونین که تمام این اعترافات، یعنی در حقیقت هر چیزی که جمهوری اسلامی بگه نباید باور کرد. این مطالبی که اینجا گفته شد من فکر میکنم به عنوان یکی از اصولهایی که میشه اپوزیسیون دنبال بکنه یکی از همین مسائلی است که مطرح شده. با سپاس.
خب خیلی ممنون و سپاسگزار از جناب افشین جمع و همچنین اتاق فرمان فرزاد جان و تلویزیون ایرانیان کانادا. با شما بینندگان گرامی خداحافظی میکنیم تا هفته آینده. خدا نگهدار.